How's everybody doing? I am Tyler Witkowski, the host of the Adventure with Coffee podcast, and sitting across from me is the beautiful, the lovely, my best friend, and my wife.
Grace Witkowski.
And together, we are the team behind Adventure with Coffee, which some of you listening may know that is our travel blog. We post a lot about what we experience on our social media and on our website and other fun places. And, we wanted to bring that to podcast form. We've been through a lot in our, let's see, 9.5 years, and we're coming up on 10 years in June that we've been together.
Yeah.
So, we've gone through a lot, and we can try to give people some tips and advice. Nothing we say is professional advice by any means. I'm not, you can't take it for gospel, but hey, this worked for us.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it. This is going to be about couple challenges and how we overcome them and traveling on top of that. And honestly, just talking about our adventures that we've had together. But first, we do want you to get to know who we are so that you can understand why we do the things that we do. So I'm going to have Tyler tell you guys who we are, how we met, just kind of give you the basis of that so that you can understand why we do the things that we do.
Yeah, so our story begins way back in June of 2015. I was working at Applebee's. I was lead server going into management, and Gracie was a hostess. Her first day, uh, first job, really.
First job.
First
Yep.
job. First day on her first job was my last day as a server. The next day I was going into management. And I remember walking in that side door, looking over there, and in the office, talking to the manager on duty, I could see this beautiful, beautiful, fiery golden sun ray of a hair. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is gonna be my future wife. I told Marty, who was like my work mom, I told her that. She walked up to me and she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I think I'm looking at my future wife. I'm gonna marry that girl one day. And
Didn't she tell you should not be messing with servers? Because
yes, she did.
Tyler, FYI, used to talk to a couple of people from there. So she was trying to give you good advice.
But the better advice was to be with you, apparently. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of how we met, and then we really blossomed into friends, right, Gracie?
We did. I was actually dating somebody at the time, and we won't get into that, but we did start off as friends, really quick friends, actually.
Day one.
Yeah. So from friendship, we went on just hangouts, which included both of our sport activities, which was baseball and soccer. We kind of taught each other a little bit of things here and there. It was real fun.
Yeah.
That's honestly, I know it was not a date. I know that, but like it's one of my favorite quote unquote dates that we've
Yeah.
had. Like it was just fun.
Yeah. And I scored on you.
That's
Not
true.
not like
In soccer.
Yeah, in soccer.
That's true. I'll let him.
No, she did.
But honestly, we've talked about it before. We kind of feel like that was kind of where it really that hangout was where it kind of blossomed from.
Yeah.
An emotional type of attachment kind of happened after that. Yeah. So I'll let you. We both have different perspectives on how our first kiss went. Just because you'll learn through the podcast that our perspectives on things are very different, but we both come together.
Yeah.
And it kind of matches
Yeah.
up, I guess.
We're like the missing puzzle piece for each other. We fit in
I like that.
perfectly. So yeah, our first kiss, we used to whenever we first started not dating, whenever we first started like hanging out, we would go to dinner a lot.
Yeah.
We would go to dinner at this place called Carolina Ale House in Wilmington. And whenever I brought her back, she would either be parked in her ride, which was typically her parents' van. She would be parked in the Walmart parking lot across from Applebee's or in the Applebee's parking lot. Well, this particular night, she was parked in the Applebee's parking lot. I came back through. There was a girl that I had talked to prior to Gracie coming on board,
Ugh.
and yeah, um, and I was like, well, shoot, we can't be seen dropping you off like this because I was a manager at that time. So I circled back around. There was a bar next to Applebee's, and we went over into that parking lot. And we parked out in the on the right hand side if you're looking at it from the highway. And we were sitting there and just talking, and I remember looking over at her, and she looked at me, and I don't know. From that moment, I was like, this this is my soulmate. Like it's not even about me marrying her. This is my soulmate. I looked in her eyes, she looked in my eyes, and instantly I knew it. I leaned in, she leaned in, and we kissed. And it was like fireworks, electricity flowing through my body. For me anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, ladies, he drove a Mustang,
Yeah.
and it wasn't the defining factor at all. But like when you go and have like a really nice hangout and you barely touched hands at the table, because that kind of happened a couple times. Um, and I was broken up at that point.
Yeah.
Um, but we were hanging out, and it just kind of happened. It was dark. He was playing music. We were talking, and it was almost like those secret, I hate to say affair because that's not the
Yeah.
right word, but like that's how people perceive it.
It's an
You know what I
adrenaline
mean?
rush.
Yeah, exactly. So I just, it was great, honestly.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Best first kiss ever. So,
And last first kiss.
and last first kiss, that's true. But yeah, that leads us into, like a lot of people did not like the way that we started. Because I was dating somebody and he was my best friend for, oh wow, that was my sophomore year of college. We were best friends since middle school. So there were a couple people in our lives that the way that it happened, we agree that's not how it should have happened, and
Right.
that is completely on me. I take full responsibility for that. But I didn't like lead them on.
Right.
Like we cut that loose once we realized what this was. Um, and then I'll lead into, it was the first time we said that I love you. Well, I guess it was the first time that I told him that I loved him.
And it was the first time I told you.
You
After you told me.
know what? I'm gonna let him tell it just because like his perspective is, mine was, I was sweaty. I was mowing the lawn. Like it was not that, like it was just something I said because I felt it. You know what I mean? It was in the spur of the moment. I felt like it was just true. And I think your reaction was just so cute.
I mean, I wouldn't say my location was the best. I was sitting
No.
in a Taco Bell in the hood of Wilmington, because that's where I live
Yeah.
by, eating a taco. And I'm sitting there, I'm texting back and forth, and next thing I know, on my phone, I see the words "I love you," and I'm like, "Love her too." And it took me a minute. I kind of looked at the phone, and I was like mid bite on the taco too, so like a taco is just hovering there at my mouth, and I put the taco down, I picked up my phone, and I texted her back, and I said, "I love you too." And ever since then, I mean, like it's been a no-brainer. Like I've fallen in love with her, with you more and more every single day. Like I love you more today than I did yesterday, and I'll love you tomorrow more than I do today.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of how this relationship works.
Yeah.
Um, that was our first I love you, and then it's been loved ever since. And I like to always put this out there because if you don't know Tyler, if you do know Tyler, you're not going to be surprised. But if you don't know him, let me tell you a little something. He is one of the movie big grand gesture types of guy. That's who he's always been. Even if it's a small gesture, he makes it big. So so y'all got to realize like this started in 2015, the summer of 2015, end of May, beginning of June. And then we had officially started dating June 15th of 2015.
It's also Mike's birthday.
Yeah, that's true.
Or dad.
My dad. And so by the time we hit, I don't know, 2.5 months of dating, that's about right. August, it was
Mhm.
mid-August.
Mhm.
I had to go back to my sophomore year of college, which was 3.5 hours away. Um, but the one thing I like to mention on how big of a grand gesture guy he is that when I came back, and we'll talk about college years, but when I came back for Christmas that same year, 2015, which means 6 months, 5.5 months of dating, this man had decided to get with my parents, and my mom had a Mustang that didn't run at the time, and he fixed it up with my mom and dad and a neighbor. He bought a whole new motor for it. He put like a
It
racing strap
wasn't
down the
a
middle.
whole new motor. It was a whole new
It
used motor.
doesn't matter.
It was a used motor from a junkyard. Let's not make it out like I went out and bought a.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Those are
To
like
me,
$10,000. I paid 400. I just want to clarify, like I was not spending 15, $20,000 on her the first Christmas. I've
you
never
act
spent
like
that in my life.
you act
And
like
on
what you
one
still
person.
did for the first Christmas we had together
No,
wasn't
no,
big.
no. I'm not saying it wasn't big, but I'm saying some people, that even after 5 or 6 months, there are people out there that buy $10,000 rings, thousands of dollars
They're
rings.
crazy.
Well, you know what? I'm freaking crazy too.
I know. I said
And instead of giving you a diamond ring that after a couple years you're not really going to care about, gave you a car that was
innocence.
able to get you around, transport you around and
Yeah,
allow you to do things because you didn't have a car.
I know.
It was
And
practical.
I was so appreciative.
I know.
So that's it. Like you need to know when you hear him and how much passion he speaks with that's who he is. Like he puts his all into who he cares about. So moving forward, I wanted to chat with you guys about our college years. So, first of all, um, right now, I'm going to get my MBA. Tyler's going to get his doctorate. He starts when this gets released, so January of 2025.
Dr. Dub.
But he had already gotten his degree at this time, and I was going to get my bachelor's. My college was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It was 3.5 hours away from home. So, um, like I said, we had only been dating for that summer, so 2.5-ish months. And he, so sweet. He helped pack everything up with my parents. My parents had dropped me off. He actually, I don't even know if my mom and dad knew about this, but he stayed the first night. Now, something you don't know about my college is it was an all women's college. It's Salem College. And there were specific times that you were allowed to have overnight guests. First night, not a thing. So we did have RAs, and I was not supposed to have him there. And the very first night, the whole dorm alarm had went off, and we all had to leave and evacuate. So the RA saw him and was pretty much like, he can't stay here. So we drove around for like, oh, an hour maybe. And then he came back. I mean, it is what it is. He came back in, went to sleep, and then he left the next morning. Um, it's just like a funny little story that we like to tell because my roommate had like a fit and it was terrible. We should never have done that, but there's a lot of things we should have never have done. Um,
And wasn't your best friend the one who set off the fire alarm by sneaking in?
no, that's a different story. No, no, no. And then like I told you guys earlier, like Tyler's a very big grand gesture type of guy. And yes, I did go back. This leads into how many times he would visit because we were 3.5 hours away. He was working full time. I was in school full time. I was playing soccer. And then I don't believe at that point, I did not at that point have a job. I work studied.
You did work
I
study,
did work
yeah.
study. Um, So most of the visiting came from him unless it was the holidays. And when I tell you minimum, at least once a month.
One weekend out of a month.
Yeah, he would come up and stay for the weekend. Usually it felt like more at least.
Oh yeah.
So I'd like to say it was more because he'd come up and watch soccer, and things like that. So sometimes it would be more than that. But it's just something I like to point out because if you a listener out there right now are in a long distance relationship, I know how hard it is. And this was new. So I say kudos to you if that's something you've been through, and the entire world, if it's the right person, opens up completely, even if you're 3.5 hours away.
Yeah, absolutely. Going speaking of the full-time job, that I was working at the time for the majority of our relationship period. But for the entire time we were dating just about, I was in a very political position. And 2017 was a pivotal election year, and some things happened that were not good for my mental health at work, and I started to really suffer. My mental health went on the down. For those of you who don't know, I suffer from bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and I had stopped taking my medicine, and I got really, really sick. I had pneumonia, bronchitis, strep throat, and the flu all together, and it was like I was sick for like a month.
Yeah,
And but before I got sick, Gracie and I decided to get a dog.
sure
And
did.
yeah, so we went out the December 16th, I guess it was.
Yep, it was
And
actually recent.
yeah, his adoptiversary was recent. But in 2017, we went out and went to the pound. We actually went to the New Hanover County pound because I had my eyes on another dog there, but that dog had been adopted that morning before we got there. So we went all the way down to the Brunswick County shelter, and we were walking. I saw this dog. Gracie saw this dog. She's like, "Hey, I really want to play with this one, or check this one out." And I was like, "He's adorable, yes, but let's see what all they got first." Of course, we came back to that dog.
He is telling this story. You know, my perspective is different on this one.
I'm giving you all the creds.
No, no. We look because our local animal shelter has a Facebook page. And Tyler, I can't take credit for this. Tyler saw Dutch because there was like a litter of 7 that came in and they named them all after the reindeer. So Dutch was originally Dasher.
Yeah.
And Tyler saw him and absolutely like went head over heels. But then he was like, let's go look at all the other ones. Let's just go see our options and we'll figure it out when we get there. So we did walk in, right? And found Dutch pretty much almost instantly. And I was like, that's it. He's
Yeah.
it. That's who I want to see. Like, take him out. Let's roll this. And then Tyler's like, wait, let's go look around. So I like diddle daddled in the back. I did I didn't I was like, nope, no, no, I want Dutch. Or Dasher. So I'll let you go on because that was your moment
Yeah.
with him.
So, like I said, we went back and asked the pound if we could see him, and we went into they have a little room at Brunswick County, and you go in there and sit with the puppy, and you can play with them and see them, see how they interact and all that stuff. So me and Gracie sat down, and as soon as we sat down on the floor, he came to me,
Straight
got
to
in my
you.
lap, nuzzled up his nose in my arm, and laid on me. And the lady that was working there said she said he has never done that with anybody. He's always stayed under a chair while people were in here. And I think it was at that moment that we knew that's the one we needed.
That was it.
Um, we got him. He was 6 months old, and we brought him home. And he wound up being the reason I got up while I was sick, and I didn't give up. And it's not saying anything against Gracie. It was just she was back in school for a
Mhm.
good portion of while I was sick. So she couldn't really, be there to take care of me. So Dutch gave me a reason every day to get up and to, I had to go take him out. I had to feed him. And whenever I would get up to feed him, I'd feed myself and use the bathroom and take a shower and do all the necessary things in life to keep going.
Yeah,
And, without him, I really don't know where I'd be today. Um, I mean, same thing for Gracie. I definitely don't know where I'd be without Gracie, but Dutch is definitely my hero.
for sure. They are two peas in a pod, 1,000%. And at this point, I had to leave that after that. After we got them, it was my Christmas break was about done. I had spent some time,
Hmm.
but not a very, just maybe a week.
Yeah.
It wasn't very long. So Tyler did a lot of the heavy lifting, and I was going into my second, no, my last, wow, 2017 of December.
Yeah,
That would have
2018
been my
was your what?
June. Yeah, but that would have been my junior year, right? Yeah. No,
No,
I'm
you
so sorry. That was
graduated in
my senior
2018,
year. Yep.
right?
Yeah. So going in to my senior year, um, I was finishing up school and I didn't have soccer. Yes, I did. I had soccer at that point, right? Am I crazy? Yeah, a little bit. We did a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
We did a little bit of spring things. That it was voluntary for
Right.
seniors. So did a few things like that. And then May of 2018, I was coming back home. I had graduated with my bachelor's in exercise science, and we were actually starting to plan a wedding at
Yeah.
that point. But before we get into wedding, there's a couple of steps that happened in 2017 that kind of goes along with my senior year.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple of things that happened in 2017 that were pretty big, which includes getting Dutch, but leads us to a wedding.
A wedding. Our wedding? No. Gracie's Big's wedding. See, Gracie was in a sorority. She was a sorority girl. She won't admit
Ooh,
it.
don't say that.
Oh, yeah, you were a sorority
Let me
girl.
say no. Our entire college, we're very small liberal arts college. It was more, I like to say it was more of like a mentorship or like a program that you were automatically put into. So you had, as a freshman, you had a junior that would select you to be your big. So it's kind of like a big little program. And they like to say sorority, but that we didn't pay fees, we didn't do parties, like we didn't do any of that. So it's not really what that was.
Either way. So her big Destiny was getting married. I think Destiny had already graduated at this time. I think.
Yes.
Yes, because you would have been a senior that year.
Yes.
So we went to her wedding and it was actually not the first wedding we had been to. We had been to two others at that point. Um, I think something like that. Either way. But for some reason that wedding, if she was in the wedding, she was a bridesmaid and I was sitting in, with all the peoples and I saw her walking down that aisle and I fell in love hard, head over heels, more for her than I ever thought was possible for me to love somebody. And at that moment, I had said to myself, I said, I'm going to ask her to marry me, you know? And so we went through the weekend, had our time and enjoyed the wedding, all that stuff. I left on a Sunday. So I think it was the day after the wedding. And I left to go back home. And first person I called was Gracie's sister, Sarah. And I said, Sarah, I want to marry your sister and I want your approval. And of course, she thought I was joking, but whenever I told her I was being serious, she gave me full approval. And the next day I texted Gracie's mom. And so here's a little tidbit that we kind of left out. Um for about the first
You got to keep this short.
I am.
Sweet.
For about the first year and a half, me and Gracie's dad Mike did not get along at all. So we around this time we had started to get cordial.
Yeah.
Um, but I was still, like, is this gonna be the trigger that makes him hate me again or whatever? So I texted Connie and which was Gracie's mom, and or is Gracie's mom, I guess. I mean, yeah, she is. But so I texted her and wound up meeting her at her work. It was about 5 minutes from where I worked, and so that day we met at her work, and I told her, I was like, I really want to marry Gracie. I said, but I need your help asking Mike. Because I knew Connie was going to say yes. Connie loved me from the beginning. She always had my back. She was always there for me, supported me, and I love her to death for it. Um, and so she told me what to do, and I called, or Connie had actually set up a time for me to come over. She told Mike that I was coming over for, I wanted to talk to him or something. I can't remember exactly what the excuse she used. But so I got there and I sat down at the table. It still remember that table. It had a lazy Susan in the middle of it,
I
and I
do. I
loved it.
love
I
that
loved
table.
that table. Um, but and I asked, and Mike looked at me and he said, "Yeah,
I'm too. I'm still shocked to this day.
yeah, well, you know." Now me and Mike are best friends, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to chat just very, I mean, this is very quick, but you guys need to know, like I said, in each little thing that we've talked about, Tyler's a big gesture kind of guy. However, I'm a pretty private person. Um, so I'm still very social, I like to think. But when it comes to like private matters, I people don't know about those. So we all know obviously, like we've chatted a little bit about wedding planning. So obviously he proposed in the summer of 2017 before I left for my senior year of college. He was throwing me a going away party with both sides of our family. It was the best party ever. Like everybody was there, which was so sweet. Um, and everybody was in on it, by the way, because he actually still have it. He made everybody that was a part of his family and my family that we were very close to, everybody videoed themselves and pretty much was like, I'm so proud of you. Congrats. Way to go on your senior year. But correct me if I'm wrong, everybody knew that you were gonna propose.
No, yeah,
Really?
just Emily didn't know. Remember,
Oh yeah.
she thought she knew, but I
Yeah,
never told her.
that's right, that's right. Um, so it was very sweet watching the video, and I'll let Tyler take it away because this was his moment. Like he did so good.
So, very end of the video, of course, it was the star of the show, me. And I said my goodbye message and told her I was so proud of her and that I loved her and I knew she was going to kick ass and all that good stuff. And then comes a scene from Scary Movie. But wait, there's more. The next scene was from one of Gracie's favorite movies, Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That's true.
The master is not yet married.
Yes.
And the very next scene was I had recorded her one night while we were laying in bed. And I said, Gracie, would you marry me if I asked you? And she said, yes. And then it switched to me. And I said, well, you said you'd say yes. So now's your chance. Turn around. And let me tell you, I was so nervous that I was going to mess it up because like I did so much research on the proper way to propose, like what needed, like if you watch the proposal video, I almost went down on the wrong knee and then like I stopped myself and changed because I was like, I've got to have all the good voodoo and like do everything just right because like, I mean, I don't want to do something wrong that's going to throw off the balance of the universe and make you say no. So I was so nervous that I was going to screw something up and
And my nephew, I was sitting in the center of the entire room and everybody was around us or right behind us. And my nephew, and he was a youngin at that point, 5, maybe not even
no,
5, 4.
4, yeah.
He was a youngin and he's still my best bud, but he was sitting in my lap and my mom, somebody came and got him and he wouldn't understand why. I didn't understand why. I still didn't know. And so I was like, no, it's fine. He can sit here like it's fine. And they're like, no, I got him. Um, and it's so funny to watch the video back because my stepsister Destiny was in the background already hyperventilating tears in the background, knowing what's about to happen. So that's super funny to watch back.
Mhm.
But yeah, I could see him out of the corner of my eye when he got down on a knee. And I freaked out, like in the best way possible. Like it was so dramatic and emotional, which is just who I am anyways. But it was it was perfect. Our very most important people were there.
Yeah. I think, and you know, I knew like Gracie was a private person. I knew you were a private person.
Yeah,
But to me, that was a moment that I felt like needed to be represented in a way that truly showed our families coming together.
I agree.
Because I mean, let's be honest, like while yes, me and you have developed obviously a strong relationship with each other's families, our families have also developed strong relationships with one another. Um, you know, Justin and I mean, I feel like they're all very nice to each other. They get along, they talk.
Yeah,
Maybe
everybody's
not all the
cordial.
time, but like if we're all around together, they don't huddle into their own little
Right,
groups,
everybody can like
mingle.
converse
Yeah,
and mingle. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that, and I like that.
yeah,
And but the biggest thing for me was that you were a part of my family and I was a part of yours, and that's done. That's written in.
yeah.
Like there's no going back. All of my sisters love him. My dad loves him. My mom loves him. Um, and I always like to say,
I like to think your grandma loves me too.
oh, she does, 100%. Um, but I always like to say that, I mean, and I love my grandparents, but your grandparents were my grandparents.
Yeah,
Your mom is my mom.
yeah.
That's just what it is. Um,
I mean, I feel the same way. Like Mariette is my grandma. Um, Mike and Connie, both I consider them a bonus mom and dad.
yeah, I agree. I love that. That's the way it should be.
Yeah,
I feel sorry for anybody that has a mother-in-law that's not the best and
yeah,
that's toxic.
yeah.
Know they exist, and I feel so bad for y'all because I do not have that. Um,
Yeah.
but moving on. So still going into 2018, so my senior year, finished that up, graduated, came back home, and I was living with Tyler at that time with his best friend and his fiance at that time. And we had all collectively decided to go our separate ways and start looking into land and a house. And so Tyler's family has been here, we're in Leland,
Long
a very long
hundreds of
time.
years.
Yeah. So his grandparents actually set aside land. It almost truly feels like kind of like a country compound. It's
Yeah.
not one of those like crazy elegant like looking ones you see. It was a country compound type deal. So they had told Tyler like this is the parcel we had laid out for you and your brother. Like choose, you got to choose one,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So he chose it, and I'm gonna tell you, house everything but the brick. I chose the brick that went under the house.
Mhm.
And then we chose the house together. We walked
Mhm.
through. But other than that, Tyler handled legit everything. I felt like I had nothing to do with, and that was not a dig. I appreciate it. He dealt with all the finances, all the contracts, like everything like that. He dealt with. So we ended up moving into our house in 2019, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
And at that time we had already planned. Actually, a lot of people don't know this, but the night he proposed, we chose our wedding date.
Mhm.
We laid in bed and we both picked a month out together, and then we pointed at the same weekend.
Yeah.
In that month. And that is we stuck with it.
Yeah. I mean, that
It
was
never
the
changed.
day we got married.
Yeah, it never changed. So um in 2019, we had actually ended up getting we had moved in at this time. We had ended up getting a second dog.
Yeah.
Her name's Belle. Please go. Feel free to visit our Facebook page or our Instagram. It's at Adventure with Coffee. And
Actually, Adventure W Coffee.
oh, my apologies. So at Adventure W Coffee, and you'll see our featured pups. We do have three. We'll talk about the third one here in a little bit. But at this time, we had gotten Belle. I love to post throwbacks, so I'll definitely be doing that when they come up, where she was such a little puppy and Dutch had grown into his pretty much his size, a little leaner, but pretty much his size at this point. And at that point at our house, we had a fenced in backyard. It was massive for them to run in. So perfect for them. And then we will dive into this a little bit more in detail, but something you need to know about us and why we're at where we are now is not the only reason, but we had a lot of family members who had actually started to trickle into our lives in the house. At first, Tyler's brother Justin, shout out Justin. Um, Honestly, he was just getting to that age and where he needed to get out of the house. He wanted to branch out on his own, which was completely fine. So he came and stayed with us for a little bit. Bro, quiet as a mouse. Literally forgot he was there sometimes. Like, it's fine.
And he was like,
He worked a lot
Yeah.
and he was with his girlfriend
yeah,
a lot.
his now wife.
His now wife
Yeah.
a lot. So that wasn't a big deal.
He was great because he like did a lot of stuff around the house for us
did.
too, like that, like little maintenance things,
He
like
did,
that.
yeah.
He would do that.
He took care of the dogs for
Yeah,
us.
yeah. If we ever need to go out of town, yeah.
And then Sarah, my sister, ended up moving in. Her and her first husband had ended up going into a divorce settlement. So I guess settlement, but divorce. And she needed somewhere to go. So at that point, Justin had moved out, honestly, not for very long at all. So that guest room, which wasn't a guest room technically, it was, but it wasn't at the same time. It wasn't supposed to be. It's supposed to be a guest room for visitors. So my sister Sarah came to stay with us. Um, she stayed with us for quite a while, a few months.
Yeah.
And then she had a bunny named Tobes, and she ended up moving out. Then a lot of stuff had happened, and at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, were we married when Sarah was moved in?
We got married when Justin lived with us.
We did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Oh, we did. We stayed at the house.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm sorry. So at this point, yeah, we were married, and
But our wedding, I mean, we got to talk about our wedding real quick.
we will. Yeah, we're gonna talk about our wedding. We'll do it very briefly, but at this point, um, we had gotten married, and Sarah was moving out. And a month after the wedding, almost exactly a month after our wedding, my brother passed away. There was a car wreck and he did not make it through. Which I'm not putting out dirty laundry or anything like that, but my mom and dad, that was a big factor into them no longer being together. So my dad left and he came to live with us. So 2020, I don't know if that was 2020,
2022 or 2021.
2021, he ended up coming to live with us. And we'll chat about that at a later time.
And then your mom came to live with us with him whenever they were briefly back together. And then your dad lived with us by himself. And then dad and Matt.
That is a lot. No,
Your
see,
dad and Matt lived with us. So
yeah. So we've had people in and out, in and out, in and out. And that honestly, let me tell you something, hardest thing to this date almost that has caused a rift
Yeah.
between us. Like
Yeah.
that was really, and it was so hard because you can't say no. You've got the space and somebody needs somewhere to go. And I had known that my dad had, I mean, he was bouncing around for
Yeah.
a little while. And I want to say he had stayed in his truck one time.
Yeah.
And found that out and I was like, absolutely not. And we have a room here, like I'm not doing that. Like he
Right.
would never let me do that. I would never let him do that.
No, absolutely.
You know,
None of the people that stayed with us would ever let us be in that
right?
situation.
Like we know that if we had to go to somebody, like roles reverse,
Right.
they would have done the same thing.
Without a doubt.
So, I mean, looking back now, I'm so glad we did what we did, but it did kind of play into a large factor into where we're at now.
Yeah, 100%.
So we do want to chat about our wedding.
Yeah.
I'll definitely let Tyler tell you a little bit of that because honestly, besides picking out the venue and like my issues, he handled the the COVID portion of it.
I was Zilla. Um, yeah, so we had, like I said, we had our date picked out from day one, August 15th, 2020. And, of course, in 2017, nobody knew that COVID was coming. Well, that's a different story for a different day. I'm not going to get into that. But nobody knew COVID was coming. So we didn't know, and 2020 comes, COVID hits, lockdowns start happening, and the venue that we had picked out, that we had paid for, that we were looking forward to, that we had everything figured out 2 weeks before our wedding said, hey, you can only have 25 people. That wasn't even enough people to cover our bridal party.
Or you can save your deposit and switch your date.
Yeah. And I feel like it was more important to me than it was to you, but I was very gung ho on that's the date that we decided on when we first got engaged, and that's the date we're going to get married. So the venue had a very bad contract for them. So I pointed out a bunch of loopholes.
Yeah, not for my husband.
Pointed out a bunch of loopholes in their contract and was able to get our entire thing back because we had of
Our whole
course
deposit back and payments and
right
all
yeah
of that, yeah.
yeah because of course 2 weeks left for the wedding. We had already paid for the whole venue, so got all that taken care of, and we were like I said, with 2 weeks left to the wedding, and we were like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And who was it that had the idea for where we wound up getting married?
I think we did. Your mom had offered
Front yard.
her front yard, which is gorgeous, by the way. It's
Yeah.
massive. I honestly wish we would have done it there.
Yeah.
If we had like my dream was not a backyard wedding. I think they're pretty, but that was not the vision. Especially after we chose our beautiful venue, I had everything planned for that. Like, and that's what I had envisioned. So it was a little rough to change. And I mean, we still sometimes we'll chat about it to this day
Yeah.
where we're like, Tyler's very big. Like, he was like, I wouldn't change it for the world. And I wouldn't change us getting married for the world, but I would have changed what happened because I like to tell him that he was very much behind the scenes on that day, especially because I was at the house. So we got married 5 feet across from our driveway. So there was a field.
The land that Gracie was talking about earlier, where there was two parcels, one for me and one for my brother. They were side by side, so we got married in the parcel that was my brother's.
Yes. So it was a beautiful woods backdrop. We got wedding rentals, like we did it, and I thought it was still pretty. But unfortunately we got married in August and it had rained that morning. And
But it stopped raining long enough for us to have the ceremony.
it did. And which is great, but that morning was stressful. And honestly, if we still had to do a backyard, should have gotten a wedding planner. I should have gotten somebody that was in charge of knowing what needed to be done because centerpieces were in a box on a table outside. I didn't get to put out our pictures for the people that couldn't be with us. Like there were things that didn't get done that should have gotten done.
Yeah.
And it was very stressful and it's fine. It's not his fault, but he wasn't there to deal with that. So it was just, I wish I could change that, honestly. And we talk about it now that if we could change it, we'd make it small.
Yep.
We'd make it strictly family that we talk to currently, because there was family that showed up that I don't talk to.
Yeah.
Family that you don't talk to.
Yeah.
And so we wish we could change that. And we wish, honestly, don't stress anybody out. I love everybody that was in my wedding party. I still, except for one person, which I still keep up with her, um, which was my roommate in college. I still keep up with her, make sure she's doing great in life. She is. But everybody else was either sister-in-laws or sisters, and my best friend, that's my sister, essentially. It's like everybody is family.
Yeah.
Tyler's side a little bit different, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Um, but honestly, we wish that we could have just did me and him. And our tree ceremony, I'll let him tell you about it. It's, I mean, probably one of my favorite parts besides the Dutch.
Yeah. So for, some people do like the sand ceremony and things like that. Well, we decided to do a planting of the tree ceremony. And what we decided to do was have both her parents and my parents up there with us. And my grandma, I wrote something for her to read off to us, as, kind of the
The idea behind what the ceremony was
right,
supposed to represent.
right. And so basically what it was our parents each poured a thing of soil into this pot, and then Gracie and I poured our soil onto the top. And it was basically symbolic of the blending of our families, and the
Yeah.
tree was symbolic of our love, how or our marriage, how the first couple years, you have to really nurture it, you have to really take care of it, really take care of the roots, build the roots up, and then as the time goes on, it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger as it grows and as you take care of it and you harvest it and you get it there.
Yeah. It was a honestly love that part. We still have the tree.
Mhm.
So we'll talk about this in a minute, but that tree is still in his grandma's yard. We planted it in our front yard and we travel full time, so we'll talk about that in just a second, but we had to ask and get permission to remove the tree from our yard to put it into her yard. So that tree's still with us, and that's honestly a symbolism. It's who we are. We want to grow together for the rest of our life.
Yeah. And the reason that we had to move it from our yard to my grandma's yard was because our yard was no longer going to be our yard. Um, I came we wound up buying a camper in
2022.
or late 2022.
Yes.
Late
Like
2022.
November.
Yeah, yeah. And got a really good deal on it from my grandpa on my dad's side. And whenever we got it at first, we were just like, hey, we love to travel. For every year we've been together, we've traveled to a different state up to that point. And we were like, instead of wasting money on hotel rooms and stuff, we'll make it cheaper and we'll get a camper and we'll go up there and stay in the camper.
Cheaper, haha.
Yeah. So we bought it and couldn't use it for the first 3 months because of a tag issue. Another story, another time. But one day in January, I had some things happen with my side of the family. That was kind of my breaking point, and I decided that what, Gracie and I needed to focus on each other. We needed to take care of each other, stop worrying about pleasing everybody else, pleasing the people around us. I've made one promise to protect and take care of and love one person in my life, and that was the woman sitting across from me right now. And I've told everybody this, so Gracie is my priority. She will always be my priority. She will always be the one that I look to first and I take care of first. Um,
Same here, by the way. I we've talked about it, and because we are very family oriented people, it had to be said that we chose each other. Our family did not choose us. We were just born into them, and we have to come first for each other, or it would never work. Which we got a taste of that real early on with
yeah,
all that happened with my dad. But that's kind of why we're here. We chose each other through all of that.
yeah. So I came to Gracie in January with this crazy idea. I was like, hey, let's sell our house and move into the camper.
Crazy.
And she literally told me, she said, you're crazy if you think I'm going to do that. And I said, give me a week. Within a week, I think it was really within like 3 days, I had her convinced to sell the house and move into an RV.
Now, we had a discussion because, like I told y'all, Tyler's a go big or go home, big gesture kind of fella. Because I know that about him. He is a get an idea and he runs with it, and that's what he's about.
But I
So
had planned this for 3 months before.
he did. He really thought about it before he brought it to me. But that was very big news to me. We had our own house. Like we had our dogs, we had our dad. My dad was going through health issues at the time. So it was like it was a decision definitely to be made. But I told him I was like, hey, like let's try. Look, we had it, right? We had a trip planned already to go see my sisters, that live in Mount Airy. And I was like, we'll go on our trip. We'll talk about this. Let's chat about it some more. Let's do some extra like heavy research, and then we'll decide in a couple of months. That couple of months did not happen, by any means. I'd say, like, I really thought about it. I wouldn't say a few days. It was like a week.
Yeah, maybe a week.
Like, I really gave that some heavy thought. And then I came to you week 2, and I was like, I think we should do it. I was still so scared.
Yeah, I mean, and from there it was like everything happened so quick. Like it's kind of a blur because it happened so quick. But so we decided to sell the house in January, put it on the market in May. It was sold by April, and we were in the camper by May, full time.
Yeah.
So within a matter of 5 months of making this decision, we had sold our house, moved into a camper, and we're now living on the road.
Yeah, essentially. We had to tell everybody that we were going into the camper, and some people took it well, some people did not. We can talk about that later. But essentially, that is where we're at now. Now, we are currently staying in Waccamaw Pines Campground.
Shout out to RJ, he's the best.
It's in Lake Waccamaw, North Carolina. We're about, I'd say, 45 minutes from our original home. So about 45 minutes to an hour from family, which is nice. We have our own space. And I do want to tell y'all, like I told y'all, we had a trip planned to go see my sisters. One very important factor from that, one that was our first trip. Well, we will get into the first trip. Boy, was that rough. But, but we ended up about 2 or 3 days into our trip, maybe less. I told you guys that my brother passed away. Um, he has a dog, had a dog, and his name's Rocky. He is a pitty and the cutest thing ever. You'll see him on our Facebook and Instagram. And he is precious. Well, he's had him since he was like 6 weeks old. And so he's been a part of the family since forever. My mom and myself and my dad, like all of us have very big attachments to him. So, Kyler fell in love.
I mean, I told you the first time I met this dog, me and him fell asleep on the couch cuddling.
He is one of the pitties you see who just affection, love, touch. And
He's
so,
actually laying on my feet right now.
oh yeah, is he? Yeah. And so my sister-in-law contacted me because this time she was in between houses and she was living with her sister and she had 4 kids at this time. And her sister has kids, and apparently Rocky had nipped at one of the kids. Um, I honestly am not blaming a kid, but I will tell you that Rocky's been around kids, other kids. He's been to the vet, which I know he's not ever been to, which was very intensive for him.
Yeah.
Um, and he's honestly never snapped. He did snap at Tyler a couple times when he was playing, I think in protective mode, but after two or three times, he's never done it again. And he never, it was a warning. He
It's
never,
been like 6 months since he's done
yeah.
it.
And that was us playing.
Yeah.
So,
And he thought she was in trouble.
yeah. And that's all, that's what that I guarantee you that's either somebody, the kid did something to him for him
Or
to
it
get
was
into
my
that
mother.
mode, or she was doing something to one of the boys they were his boys.
Yeah.
Um,
We don't
so
know though.
we don't
But
know. Right, we weren't there.
All we know is that since we've had him,
He hasn't done
Yeah.
that. But anyway, she had reached out to me a couple days into our trip and said, I have nowhere to take him. He can't stay with us anymore. Like it broke our heart. I know she loves this dog. But at that time we were 4.5 hours away. And so I called my mom and because they were riding around. Brittany, is my stepsister, wow, sister-in-law is my sister-in-law's name. she was riding around with Rocky in the car because she was told to take Rocky out. Like she was not allowed to bring the dog back in. So she was riding around with them, had nowhere to take them. So my mom, who was back home at the time, had I reached out to her and I was like, this is what's going on. I want to keep him. I'm keeping him. Can you go pick him up? And at that time, Tyler and I had talked. Tyler, like, when I tell you immediately, he was like, yes, done, fine.
Love that dog.
So my mom went and got him and kept him for a couple of days till we got back home. And then we got back home, and essentially that's the story of our family of 5.
Yeah, but the craziest thing is, so we had been living in the camper for 6 months by the time we got our Rocky, but it was only 2 weeks before our first
Oh yeah,
trip across the Midwest, which we will get into in
it'll be our
the
20
next episode.
yeah, it'll be our 2024 trip overview that we're
Yeah.
going to tell you guys about, which was so fun. But
Yeah.
he's right. We got Rocky
Yeah.
right. I mean, I'm talking, we got him, and it was a vet visit that was astronomical because he'd never been. And a lot of campgrounds, we'll tell y'all about it, but a lot of them require you to have up-to-date vaccines.
Rabies shots.
And I was scared because there are a lot of campgrounds that if they don't require that, you never know what a dog's carrying. So like it was preventative too.
And pit bull bans, which we'll get into.
Yeah. So that's really all for now.
Yeah.
I hope that you guys got to know us a little bit more, and now you know how we met, what happened through the proposal, the house, the wedding, and now we are living in Dink, which is our camper's name.
Named after my great grandma on my dad's side of the family. So yeah, we are super excited for this season. Please, please, please drop a like, follow us, share us with your friends. If you love us, leave us a review. If you hate us, just don't listen again.
But we are going to get into traveling and RV do's and don'ts and dogs and couple issues, especially and he will dive into it, but couples with a partner that has mental health issues and what happens with that while traveling. That plays a big factor into it. So we're going to be very versatile here, and we hope that you guys want to listen again.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate your time. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Grace.
And we love you
so much.
Who lives in RV, traveling estates, adventure with coffee, driving dink all over the place, adventure with coffee, with 3 pups or cuddling as can be, adventure with coffee, the happiest little traveling family, adventure with coffee, adventure with coffee, adventure with coffee, adventure with coffee. Until next time.